Hey everyone, I'm just gonna give it a second for everyone to trickle in. I hope everyone's having a good day so far. I'll take the silence as a yes. We're just gonna give it a couple more minutes. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hey everyone, I hope everyone is having a great day and we're hoping to make it even better with this webinar. So we have our President of Strategies group, Daniel Collins, demonstrating how to prompt actions for your users with business events and tasks in Acumatica. Following that, we will have a presentation from Acumatica's productivity tool, Asite. If you have any questions throughout the call, please feel free to put them in the Q&A or in the chat box. Additionally, this webinar will be recorded in case you miss anything, and there will be a link sent out, so please keep an eye out for that. All right, Daniel, let's get started. Take it away.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here and just make sure that I've got the correct screen shared. Looks like it. So we are going to be talking through setting up a business event. So this business event is going to trigger a task. Tasks are really versatile in the system. So you can tell basically build your process into your ERP system using a couple of quick tools we'll cover and some actionable tasks for the end users, right? So given a scenario, I need these steps completed. We're going to kind of talk about that high level for service orders. I just want to confirm this is system-wide. So it is not specific to any one area. We're going to cover one because I can't cover all of them and no one would want to listen to that, but we'll cover the one. So we're going to start in this business event screen, and I'm going to create a business event. Now, first thing I got to do is name it. Right. Give it some sort of recognizable name. Really doesn't matter, but that's what you're going to look it up by. And then we've got a couple different options in here that we're going to talk through. First thing is the screen. So what screen is this running off of? This is important because this is what's going to trigger that action, right? It's going to trigger whatever business event we configure here. For our use case, we're going to say service orders is the screen we want to work off of. And you can see here, I've got two. This one is going to be your primary list, which is an inquiry. So you can trigger it off of a generic inquiry. It doesn't have to be an out of the box one. You can actually build one yourself, or you can trigger it based off of a actual data entry screen. And that's what we're going to walk through today. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. It's going to pull in my screen ID. And then you've got some options here. I'm going to trigger this by record change. If you're doing it off a generic inquiry, you have the option of making it an action, which is a button that you would manually trigger. All right, for each record, perfect. And let's see here. Order creation. All right, so remember, this is just one example. We're using service orders. You could use this in projects. You could use this in AP, AR, customers, vendors, whatever you need. So your trigger conditions is what's going to trigger this, what's going to tell this to run. For us, we're going to say a record. So anytime you make a new service order, this is supposed to trigger. And we got to track that field. Go to my field name here. any field will do. You can track all of them. I recommend only tracking what you need. So I would be able to tell if it's a new service order because I have my ref number for it. Go ahead and save. All right. So now we've got the trigger condition, which is just a new record inserted here. You can build this to be really complex. You can use different tables in the system. So let's take a look at this. So maybe field change on the service order. We want to look at, it could be a status, it could be a new project, but any update to the status, this would trigger. So there are some options in here. For us, it's just going to be a new service order. Then you go to your subscribers. This is where we're going to tell it what to trigger once that trigger condition is met. So I click here. I've got a couple options, and I'm going to go ahead and create a task. All right. So here's where we're going to do description. Just kind of says what this is going to do for us. And it's going to create this template. But the summary, this is where it's actually building the task, right? This is going to be in your subject line of that task. You actually have some lookup items. So I could go into the service order. I could look at the customer within the service order. And I could say, let's go ahead and throw in the account name. You can see there's tons of options in here, so feel free to look through it. It's basically anything linked to that record. So I'm going to say this account name. Call to confirm appointment. So it's going to bring in dynamically whatever the name is of that customer, and then it's going to finish with my text here. You can put more details in this body if you'd like. Maybe you want to add some notes that's going to happen every time. Anything that they need to be aware of when they're doing this step, this is where you would document that. You've got some options here to add bullets, things like that. You can even put in data tables. And just like up here, you can insert a data field. So same options, you can grab data that exists in the system and you can put it into that body. We're going to go to the task settings. This is where we're going to set up all the details of this task. So what is our start date? What is our due date? Some of these aren't necessary. I'm going to take out category, group. I don't need these. That we're definitely keeping our reminders. I don't need project or task for this use case. So let's start at the top. Start date. You can actually write formulas here. So you can say, if you're familiar with formulas, you can use the date time formulas. And you can basically put in a bunch of options with this date add function. This is usually what I do. I don't have time to go through all of the different options, but what I will effectively do here is say date add. So from this date, which is the day this triggers today, add interval of days, this number, which we're going to say, and we'll say 3. So they're going to start this in 3 days, and I'm going to save myself some work, copy that, validate just to make sure we're good, and then hit OK. Perfect. And then on the due date, do the pencil icon here, paste in my same criteria, and instead of 3, let's say we're going to give them 7 days to get this done. So I started 3 days out, and it's due 7 days after. All right. So that should handle our due date. This checkbox for from schema will allow you to use the database field and make sure it actually translates. You could obviously put in formulas, pass in the details from the system, but this is a really easy way to do this. You could just plug in, okay, I want this to be a high priority task. The status, same thing. I'm going to put it in the open status. All right. And then reminder is actually the checkbox that says, do you want to trigger a reminder for your employee? That's perfect. And then I'm going to do remind at just to show the data field. You could put in a static date. It's not the best use case for anything like this because you don't know when it's going to trigger. So I would recommend going back to our trusty formula. So reminder, probably set the reminder the day that it starts. Okay. And if you haven't dealt with tasks in the system, It's a lot like your Outlook, how it pops up and it says, hey, you have something to do, and you can snooze it, you can dismiss it. So there's a bunch of options there. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Okay. You can see right here, it's linked to that event. All right. I'll close out of that task. So there we go. We have one task set up to trigger on the creation of a new service order. Something that's always fun to explore is you can do more than one task. So you could build out a whole list and set them at intervals if you have standard intervals for these things, right? Just follow the same process, put in your task, put in your details here. The one difference might be maybe there's a specific owner for each step. You can actually go into the owner field, click into owners, and it has a list of employees in the system. So I could assign it to myself, and then statically, it will always be my task every time this is triggered. So that's an option. I'm going to go ahead and leave that. Okay, so let's test this out. It's always the most nerve-wracking part of these things. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new service order for, let's see if we have, we'll just go with trusty a bartender. All right, put in my branch location. And let's see here. Okay, I think I've got everything covered, but it will tell me. Perfect. Just add one to this customer very quickly. Go to my service billing. And this should be set up beforehand, but we're in a demo environment, so apologize about that. That should do it. And now I should be good. Perfect. Okay, so we just technically inserted a record into the system, right? So I would expect to have an activity here. Let's give the system a second to trigger and look at that. Here is my task. It's got all the due date information in there. It assigned it to me because I created the record and we didn't set a default owner. It set that reminder for that 3-day out mark as well as the start date. You can see it kind of all came over for me. High status, open. So now I know I have something to do, and this will be in my task list to get things done. This is a great way to assign out work to the team. If you've got a bunch of different people, a bunch of different moving processes at every step, it doesn't have to be just when you create a record. This is a great way to do it, is at every change. Maybe it's a workflow stage change when you move into the next one. Maybe it's a status. Maybe it's on closing the service order. You need to trigger a list of events. So this is something that we actually have found very valuable at Strategies Group. So I wanted to pass that along. Not too terrible to set up, especially if you are using the data entry screen like we just did here. But it's something that can add a lot of power to your system. So that's all I had to cover. Are there any questions that came in, Selena?
No, there aren't. Yeah, I think. Oh, wait, actually, there is one. Do assigned tasks pop up on your screen when you log in?
They do. So the way that they pop up, let me open one here. There's two ways. This reminder, I always tell people it's a great tool in the system because it's really frustrating. It pops up, it tells you have something to do, which, no one likes being told what to do, myself included. But there we are. Hey, Daniel, do your job right here. And I can snooze it, say, remind me again in 4 hours, I can dismiss it. But this list pops up every time when you're past that reminder date and time. So yes, the other option, and I don't know what dashboards I have in here. Let's see. I'm not sure if any of these have it on it, but this task screen. And there it is again, because I didn't snooze it. There's my open task. So this is another screen that works. We've also put a lot of dashboard widgets on people's screens or on their dashboards to be specific to the person logged in. It's a great call to action. So I hope that answers it. Any other questions?
No, I think we're good.
All right, perfect.
Diana?
Yes, so thank you, Daniel, for that. It was a great presentation, and I know everyone got a ton of value out of it. So I am now going to hand it over to Dan to introduce Asite and how it can enhance your Acumatica Construction Edition experience.
Okay. Thank you, Diana. And so I think everyone should be able to see, I've got a PowerPoint slide up that says Users Unite, Lunch and Learn. Is that visible?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, great. So thank you everybody for joining this afternoon, and thank you Strategies Group for inviting Asite to participate. Really appreciate it. My name is Dan Lehman, and I'm the CRO responsible for North America, and I'm going to be joined by Alan Drum, who's our Vice President of Solution Engineering, and he's going to do a brief demonstration here in just a couple minutes. So what we are, just to make sure, again, tell me if we haven't seen the slide change here, but we've got a slide up here that says poorly managed projects are expensive. And so what we're going to highlight here today is the Asite project management solution, really collaboration and project management tool, and how it integrates and works with the Acumatica application. Okay, and just kind of set the stage here a little bit. And this study was a little dated, a couple years old, but I don't think it's changed much. They said, kind of a group did a study and said for every $1 billion spent on projects in the US, there was a loss or waste of roughly $122 million per $1 billion spent. So meaning 12% of the budget for every project was wasted due to poor management. And certainly that's where we come in. We think we can be very helpful in helping to ensure that construction companies, construction entities better manage their projects. Right. And so if we think back, kind of how did folks used to share information? It used to be, we used to, and I've been in construction technology since the mid 90s, and I'd hop in somebody's pickup truck to go out and on a ride along with them out to a job site. And I have to make sure I've moved this project binder off the seat, right? Because this was really the, kind of the gold standard here of what everybody had to make sure they had all of their information, copies of contracts, plans, revisions, RFI logs, everything that they needed went into that binder. Keeping it up to date was really challenging. But what we all know is that there are tools today that help to manage this. And kind of looping back to that 12% of budgets are wasted. And I think today's projects are even more challenging than they used to be, right? We see increased complexity over and over again in regards to what clients and customers want. We see folks expect and anticipated a greater, pace of responding to change, right? So with all the technology that we have today, where we can share information with clients and they expect that their inputs to come back and be incorporated relatively quickly into the process, very quickly into the process. And we then need to be able to communicate all of that information with architects, engineers, subcontractors, the clients back to the clients for approval. Right, all of that continues to cause a dramatic sense of we need to keep folks involved and understanding, and everybody needs up to speed on change. Again, challenging if we're working in the old ways. Customization, everybody wants it their way, right? So we used to do a lot of customers that they did a lot of the same thing over and over and over again. But the reality is that that's rarely the case in today's world. Everybody wants to do things with their own little flair to it, or taking into their own specific needs because they know they can. That's the world we live in today. So even if we are doing like projects over and over and over again, there will, in most cases, be modifications that have to be matched, to be tracked and managed through that process. And then, even if we have some contractors that are doing a lot of work for us, et cetera, that know what we typically do, we need to make sure they have the current information, both as the baseline and for the changes. And of course, where does this really get expensive? It's when the communication breaks down, right? And so this statement down at the bottom, increasing complexity, greater speed of change, and enhanced customization all drive greater communication needs, right? That's really what this comes down to, is how do we best communicate in regards to what's happening in the projects, what's potentially changing the projects, what has changed in the projects, and ensure that everybody has the right information at the right time to execute on the projects to ensure that these projects stay on budget and on time. And again, that's where we come in. So what we're going to get into in just a minute, and again, so somebody holler if they're not seeing this. We have a slide up now that says Asite project workflow. So we're
We
going to
can
get
see it. Looks good.
good, good. Well, and actually, let me pause for a second. I forgot we do have a poll question. So Selena, you want to kind of start here with our first poll question?
I think I launched it. I think it's gonna do all three at once, actually.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do all.
Mhm.
That's good.
Mhm.
All right. So everybody should have received a poll question. So you take a look there and submit. Selena, I'll let you drive this to conclusion with the poll question.
Okay, sounds good. I'll just keep it open for a little bit. Looks like answers are coming in.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to keep going, Selena, or do you want to wrap that up here?
We have about 50% of everybody has went through the poll, so yeah, you can keep going.
Okay. All right. I'll keep going. We'll leave that up. Okay. So as we get into the Asite project workflow solution, we're going to highlight here and get into the application. There's really kind of two key components to it. The core, the left two columns that you see on the screen there are about the collaboration within the application, how we can take and bring all the participants into the process, whether internal or external of your company, access to plans, revisions, contracts, submittals, documentation, etc. All on that common platform. We'll go a common data environment. And on the right-hand side, we're going to talk about the typical project management forms and processes that we're all used to working through. So incident tracking and RFIs and daily field reportings and minutes, meeting minutes, again, submittals, inspections and checklists, quality assurance, and all this is that we've provided in the application through our forms designer, or what we call app builder. So we'll take you through some use cases of that, but also keep in mind that the app builder is actually a forms tool that allows you to create your own forms as well. And all of this on top of our open architecture platform. Okay, so we'll get into these components here. Now, as we see these items on the right, the RFIs, the daily field reports, the meeting minutes, some of you may also be aware, right, that Acumatica provides a project management module within the application that provides for some of that functionality. And so as we go through this presentation, as I get ready to turn this over to Alan, one of the questions I think we'll kind of want to highlight here is, why would you consider the Asite application as opposed to the Acumatica project management solution, which by the way is a nice module, and certainly in many use cases, depending on what you do, could be a great fit. But kind of the biggest theme here is that we like to kind of call out is that Acumatica, we think, can be a great solution if you don't require a lot of collaboration. And that's both internal and external of your company. So that's kind of a big theme here. So when does Asite make sense? Well, if there's a need to collaborate with individuals outside of your company, you don't want them coming into your ERP, or you have internal project team members that you don't want coming into your ERP. Or there's a need to specifically collaborate on specs and plans and other electronic assets. And Alan's going to walk through some examples of that today. We have sophisticated workflows, a sophisticated workflow engine as part of the Asite solution. There may need to be a need to customize the project forms or build logic into the project forms. That, again, with our app builder tool, is very easily done within the Asite application. Or, for example, you may have processes that just aren't incorporated into the Acumatica solution: checklists, punch lists, quality assurance, health and safety, as examples, right? We're not going to get into our BIM, any of our BIM capabilities today, but I did also want to mention, for those of you that may be working and needing to collaborate around BIM files, we also do that as well. Okay. So as we move on here and we get ready to go into the demonstration, I'm going to turn it over to Alan in just a minute here. We're going to start off by taking a look, first of all, taking a look at how the Asite application looks inside of the Acumatica solution. But then we're going to get in and take a look at some examples of an RFI process, either daily field reporting or some meeting minutes. We'll take a look at how we collaborate around some of these electronic assets, documents, contracts, etc. We'll take a look at the mobile solution. we'll jump back here, take a look at how the dashboard component works within Asite. And we'll highlight the Acumatica integration. And then the last piece here that we'll show briefly is that the ability to, for those, again, that, we're going to spend most of the demonstration taking a look at the application integrated as a part of Asite. But for the team members that you don't want to have access to Acumatica, we'll highlight how they just use Asite externally. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Alan, turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Let me know when you can see my screen. Just share it here. Everybody see that?
We got it. Yep.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Again, my name is Alan Drum, Vice President of Solution Engineering for North America here for Asite. And what you're viewing now is Asite running within Acumatica. So I'm logged into my Acumatica instance, and I'm now running Asite. And so we'll navigate a number of different areas, as Dan pointed out, relative to project management. And really the first example is really at the forms level, or what we call apps. And these are really, we call them apps because they're smart forms. And you'll see why here as we go through a couple of different examples. But I can get to this by simply clicking from my dashboard. I'm presented, and you can kind of see some of the standard forms that we provide out of the box with the Asite solution. I'm currently looking at my RFI log as an example. And so from here, I can see a number of different things, all the RFIs that have been raised. I can see when they were created, what the status of those are, if I'm tracking a status against them, certainly what the open question is, where that question has been oriented, right? In many cases, these were sent to me as an open question. You can see here, we've got one that's open for a response within 3 days. These forms are designed kind of in a standard format out of the box, but they all can be configured to associate any data that you want to collect during the process of managing an RFI, meeting minute, daily field report. I'll show a couple different examples of that. And so what you're seeing within the form view here is the ability for the user to raise the question in the case of an RFI, be able to categorize it, be able to associate a discipline as appropriate. And then some other things that we found certainly over the course of dealing with many of our clients over the years, right? But be able to classify what kind of priority is it, is it going to require cost impact? Is it going to have a schedule impact? All key pieces of information that we can collect during the process that helps us, really adjudicate, not only get the answer back for the open question, but then determine, right, are we going to end up with a budget impact or schedule impact? And so you can kind of see this is laid out with a initial request or question. So in this case, we had an air handler, it looks like showed up on the job, turned out to be a little bit different than what was noted or had been with the original submittal. And so when we look at that capability, what you'll see is I can associate files. I can also do form to form association. So, logical steps typically are, right, I want to raise maybe a change order request for an RFI. I want to link multiple RFIs together. We can do that within the platform. And then certainly we can associate any of the files within the platform. So in this case, I tied back to the original submittal for this particular air handler. And again, being able to add those as we go through this process, any number of either documents that are already on the platform or that we want to add as part of the process. And this, again, as Dan mentioned, designed for both internal users and certainly with the external users. And so that initial view that you had seen here, we track really the history of the collaboration or the interaction on this. So that, the question was raised, it was sent to Dan. An answer was replied and sent to Dan, and then we're now in the process of getting his acknowledgement or response that the response to the question is indeed appropriate. And again, you'll notice the status here is in progress. We can have a number of different status capabilities within the platform. So a couple things, you're seeing kind of a traditional distribution here. But if I need to initiate an ad hoc distribution, I certainly can do so. And it's as easy as selecting, users that are configured in this particular project, We also manage users by specific roles and specific organizations. So, imagine, going back and forth between, architects, engineers, subcontractors, whatever the case may be. Oftentimes we need a group of people that are organized in these classifications. The other thing you'll notice is the actions that are automatically applied, right? Are we going to send this out for information, or does it require a response? How much time is required, and are we going to instantly notify them via email? So typically, right, our forms are designed for the internal interaction within the platform, where users are utilizing, as we showed earlier, the ability to see the log, the status, what actions required of them. But certainly we can also augment that with email notifications, whereupon they can, click a link, come right into the platform and complete the task or action that was required of them. When we look at other things that we can do within within our forms area, we can also drive these forms via specific workflows. And so I'll show you a couple different workflows as we go through. Whoops, excuse me. But you have the ability then to drive these either in prescribed workflows or ad hoc distributions, depending on what's appropriate. A couple other examples. If we go into a daily field report, I'll just select one here as an example. Again, I'm seeing the daily log. When I go into the daily field report, you just see a little bit different construct with this, right? So we have groupings within the form. We can put different components of data that are appropriate for that. And again, whatever the example may be, I'll pick one here that probably has a little bit more data. This one shows that I was on the job site for 8 hours. I operated a crane, right? You get the idea, whatever the appropriate pieces of data that we're indeed collecting within the daily field report. And again, these are simple examples. So they can be configured to any specification that's required for the information that you want to collect from the field. The other example that I had here was indeed meeting minutes. And so when we look at meeting minutes, just showing the flexibility of the form designer tool. This one is actually pulling in, a reference from the prior meeting, pulls in the participants that were attending, right? In this particular example, we're filling out the meeting minutes for the meeting that occurred on May 8th. Right, we had Emily was able to join, Eric was not able to join, right? And we can add additional participants as appropriate that are coming into the meeting. We can add those if depending on how many are required. So a lot of flexibility here, including this ability to add agenda items, different meeting records, so I can insert new meeting minutes, new tasks, and new agenda items all within the construct of this particular form. Okay. Last but not least, I will note we also can do very specific tailored forms. This one's more of a bespoke form. You're going to see some checklists that we go through when we get into talking about punch list and things like that for the mobile. This utilizes our checklist format. I had a customer say to me one day, hey, I'm not a superintendent, but I am going out to the job and I want to record. Maybe we had an issue on the job. Maybe we had a warranty situation. This one we created, we could walk out to the job site, say we found the condition, put in the field observations, and then record any of the issues that had occurred, including, taking photos, putting captions to it, and then most importantly, right, being able to associate a task for resolution. So all of this kind of gives an example of what's capable within the Asite forms area. All right, so let's go back. I'll close a couple of these examples down and get back to our dashboard. And when we come back into the dashboard, the other area that we wanted to cover today is really around the document management, or what I like to call electronic assets. Those electronic assets really are anything that you want to store on the platform. You can create your own folder structures. The folder structures provide navigation capability for the user, organization, but they also provide some level of security, for internal and external users. But at its simplest level, right, we're going to see a couple of things about drawings, right? And as Dan said, we talk about collaboration, right? So we can view, store, and collaborate around any document. Some of the ones that I've seen in my career to be a challenge, right, are ones that are in proprietary formats, particularly, DWG, DGN, things like that, that are coming from the CAD authoring tools. They have to be converted to PDF or something else done to them before users can actually interact with them. In Asite, we support over 250 different file types. And so I'll pull up just a simple drawing, an office plan where we're making some changes for our client. And you'll notice a couple things right out of the gate is that this is a DWG file. I'm viewing it natively on our platform, so I didn't have to convert it. I'm also interacting with it. So I've done a number of different markups showing some of the things that need to be noted. And I've tried to just show a couple examples, right? Different boxes, we can do shading. We have a whole tool set here with regard to annotating on top of our drawings or any electronic asset. And so what the purpose is, of course, is that we can then collaborate around this particular document, putting the markups in, making the comments, and moving it back and forth through whatever the appropriate steps are for design review, change review, whatever the case may be. And so what you're noticing here is that I'm on revision 3 of the drawing. And so we store all of the revisions. We manage all the revisions on the platform as well. And so when you come into a particular revision, we can also see changes. So I can compare the file, my current version 3, with the original one that was approved. And of course, I'm familiar with the project. And so maybe a side-by-side makes sense for me because I know that the client asked for this conference room to be expanded. And in so doing, we were going to have to, trim up a couple of the rooms on the outside, a couple of the offices, change the orientation of the hallway here. But for some users, it may be easier, right, to see an overlay and to ensure that all of the changes were incorporated, particularly for a given drawing in this example. So, and again, we do a lot of different things with overlay and comparisons for different documents. The other thing that we do, as I mentioned, is that we obviously are moving this through collaboration and keeping all of the comments by user. All of that is contained within the history of the document. So again, we're just touching the surface of really what we can do here. But if you look at the history of any given document, I can see it from the very beginning. When we brought it onto the platform, what was the purpose of issuing it, right? Was it for review? Was it for design coordination? Was it for, basically the final drawing that we're pushing out to subcontractors, whatever the different roles are. And you can see here, I can see distribution history. I can see revision history. I can see all the status history. So when was it approved? And again, all based on, right, getting, again, as you'll see, not only on the form side, but on the electronic asset, Asite's really purpose built to get the right information to the right people at the right time for the appropriate action. And so that's a brief introduction to our files area. And so just other examples, right? Submittals, as you would expect, right? I can manage all the submittals, as appropriate, no matter what side of the process I'm on. If I'm a sub and I'm delivering submittals, to the general or to the owner, or if I'm collecting those on behalf of the subs, whatever the case may be, we can support all of those processes, including, the review, the ability to review the documents, and be able to obviously see for whether or not they're required to be revised and resubmitted. And so just like we did on any other document, this is, right, the storage of the document, viewing it through our viewer and being able to collaborate real time around those. And then, of course, at the appropriate time, being able to say that these are submitted and then distributing those responses back to the appropriate personnel. All right. So that's a little bit about our forms and files. I think I've covered everything there. Dan, if there's anything I missed, please let me know.
I think good. Let's move on to mobile.
All right. So mobile. And again, like Dan, I've been in the industry about almost 24 years now, and dealing with a lot of technology, and as it's changed over time, one of the biggest things is what can I do in the field with the information, right? And so what Asite provides is a full-featured application, and this application is what I like to call a thick client, but it's a fully installed app. And so up here on the right, you can see this option for synchronization. So what does that mean to the user? It means they can take the data with them as appropriate. And more importantly, they can also collect data and bring it back to the office from the field when they're not in an internet connection, right? And so common things, right? All of the things that I was able to do on the primary platform, right, through the web browser, I can do in the app. So organized very similarly, right? I have folders, I can see the drawings. This little pen indicates that I've asked for all the most current drawing sets to be downloaded automatically and synchronized. And that green button just indicates that I have the latest and greatest, right? So as I go out to the field, right, I'm always going to have the correct information. And again, one of those challenging document types, this is that same DWG CAD file that I now can see the current collaboration and the changes that are happening that are being reported. In this case, I initiated these originally from the field. I just happen to see them in the back office. So all of those markup tools are here. All of the capability to collaborate and see all the communication and the discussion are here. All the same as what you would expect, or same experiences what the users have on the browser side. Same thing true with the apps. I won't take the time to go through that, but I can raise an RFI. I can view the RFI log. All of that's visible from here. The way we differentiate a couple of functions specifically to mobile that aren't available directly right in the way that I'm going to show you on the mobile are things like quality and punch lists. And so for quality, right, we can lay out, let's say we're working on those business center changes, the 2 conference rooms. A couple of things that I can do is that I can predefine a workflow. And again, this is a little bit different than our workflow designer that I mentioned that could be used with our files and forms. This is really a staging process, if you will, to say, hey, when I go out to do these conference rooms, I want the users in the field to complete the following forms at the appropriate times, right? I just laid out kind of an example. I wanted to do an initial quality inspection. I wanted to do, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-in inspection. I wanted to do a final inspection before the drywall goes up, right? I'm looking for fire blocking and sealing and all those good things. And then I've got a hold point that at the point I'm done, I'm actually making sure that I'm getting the most current drawings, as-builts from the contractors, whatever the appropriate steps are. And again, this is used by our general contractors, our specialty contractors. It's really just designed to sequence what's required at a particular point in time on a particular part of the project. And so again, I can raise the same kind of form directly from here. And again, this is an example using our checklist builder. I've lined out what I want to be done during that particular inspection. So I want to, come in and say pass, fail. If it fails, put the information as to why it failed. I can also immediately assign a task, right, to a user. And again, same selection here. I can send this off to, Dan or whomever the appropriate party is, tell them how many days they have to fix it, right? All those good things that often are done via email. And instead, we're using the task management system within Asite to drive that collaboration and distribution of information. Last example that I'll show you in the mobile, and this one just again utilizes the mobile capability, and that is to, to really drive a visual against the project. So just like we had outlined the business center in the quality plan, I can do the same thing by associating specific locations to a drawing. And so now those 2 locations, conference room 1 and conference room 2, are able to be viewed on a mobile device. They're linked to the location within Asite. And from here, I can raise any number of forms. And you can see the red ones are open punch list items. Looks like I have an inspection report that's in progress right here. That's looks like the plasterboard inspection, pre-drywall. Actually had an incident on the site. So we recorded, it looks like our, window contractor had an employee that cut his finger on putting in the glazing on the windows or whatever the case may be. So these are all forms, right, that are associated now to the particular project. And so it's really easy to raise any form from here. I just simply click on the user interface, and I'm running my iPad live from my desktop. And again, I just get those options of what forms I need to fill out based on my role for that particular item. So again, just high degree of utility for the users in the field, easy organization, and simplified ease of use to be able to capture that data very quickly and easily in the field. And then, of course, it's immediately available on Asite on the web platform. They synchronize immediately. Of course, unless I'm offline, and then I synchronize when I'm back into coverage. So that's a little bit about mobile. So I'll move from there and go back to really where we started, right, which is the dashboard. So as I mentioned, all of the information that's being stored, right, electronic assets, all of the data we're collecting in the forms, all of the information that we're distributing to folks at various levels. What you'll notice is that the dashboards within Asite provide, and again, there's a number of different gadgets and ways that these can be laid out. For demonstration, I typically look at it and say, hey, I want to get to the drawing log very quickly. I can see right here that there's 2 actions that are overdue in the drawings area. So if I were to click on the 2, what you'll notice is it takes me back to the drawing area, but now the two items that required my attention are already pre-filtered, and I can immediately come in here and do whatever's required of me. Right, it looks like we had a rejection on this particular drawing. I'm going to come in, make another revision, whatever the case may be. Same is true for any of the items here. You can see items that are due and overdue. So they serve as a navigation tool from the dashboard, but they serve as key performance indicators and the ability to very quickly go and take action. So again, if I wanted to look at the items that were overdue, 4 items, doesn't matter where they are in the project, I can come in here and see that I actually have, looks like specification, a drawing, a number of different things that are coming from multiple areas within the platform. So in saying that, what you'll notice is I didn't have to be drilled down into a folder, or some of the limitations that we typically see when folks are trying to manage this on other platforms. I can see all the information very easily across any of the virtual folders that I've created here. And so that's a little bit about a dashboard. It really serves as a management tool, right, to ensure that, again, right information to the right people at the right time for the right action. And we want to put it in front of them at any given time so that they know exactly what they're supposed to do. Okay. Last thing, and again, we've been running Asite from within Acumatica. One thing that we've done with the integration is also provide the ability to get to that information on a project by project basis. So you'll notice here, I'm in the project listing within Acumatica. And if I go to a particular project here that I highlight, what we've added is a side panel. So now the user can navigate to the side panel and it will pull up it'll pull up the project here in the corresponding area, and I can get to all the documents that have been associated with that particular project. All your standard controls work within the side panel, right? I can go full screen. I can pull it up side by side. So I have this open, and what you'll notice is as I navigate between other projects, it will looks like I timed out there. Sorry. It'll refresh. I didn't have access to that one. So security works. That's a good thing. But you notice that as I go through each one, then I would see the corresponding project information over here on the right. So again, just ease of use, tied the data together. And the way that we do that is at the project level, the integration customization package that goes into Acumatica is really simple. It's just a simple link to Asite. We'll either create a new Asite project from the Acumatica project, or we can link them. If in some cases we perhaps are collecting information in Asite first. A lot of our customers utilize Asite in development of projects, right? So we can use it, in the bidding phases, we can use it in development phases, whatever the case may be, maybe even pre-contract. And therefore, when it's time to get the project started in the ERP within Acumatica, we can link back to all the data that we've been storing within Asite already. So you'll see that Asite reference here. That's how we keep them in sync. So super simple. And so to that point, and it shouldn't be understated, you can run, and we do expect our customers to run Asite as a standalone product, as well as being able to interface with the integration and the workflows that are tied in with Acumatica. Certainly that makes sense to what Dan mentioned, right? Where we don't want, third-party users getting into the ERP system. They can come into a separate login, and this is what they'd see. It's similar experience, right? This is Asite in its native form, all the same things that I showed you previously. And again, all of these are controlled by security and by role that your organization defines as to who can access what in any given part of the application. So with that, I thank you for your time. And Dan, I'm going to turn it back over to you unless there's anything else you want me to add.
No, that's great. Thank you, Alan. I think that was awesome. It's great overview of Asite and also how Asite interacts with Acumatica for individuals that need it to interact together, as well as at the very end, I think just as important as you said, highlighting for those folks that aren't going to be getting into the ERP, but need to be interacting in the process, how they'll be coming in just directly to the Asite platform. So just to wrap up, kind of the points we started in the beginning, right? This is the right, again, as we take a look at that, we want to maximize project revenues and decrease risk by ensuring that we're bringing everybody onto this singular platform and allowing to deal with the complexities of your projects, the change management processes, the customizations within your project. And again, just these 3 points all tie up just to the whole collaboration component to ensure as we go through these processes that everybody is updated as appropriate or is included in review processes, et cetera. Okay. And again, I think just, highlight there the collaboration components, the project controls, the field operations. I thought Alan did a real nice job moving through that in the time allocated. So with that, Selena, we got maybe just a couple minutes left. Any questions from the group?
Yes, we would love to hear you guys' questions. Let's see. Oh, looks like we got one. Are you able to track labor hours within Asite? Does that connect through Acumatica time cards?
So great question. You absolutely can set up, the forms, and the daily field report's a great one there. We can capture the labor hours through like a daily field report, or even it could just be a bespoke form. And then there are ways to either export that to CSV or with the open APIs that we can connect it back to the Acumatica database to push it back for example, like the time card entry.
Perfect. And does Asite charge on a per user basis?
Okay, yeah, great question. And great question too, because obviously what we're talking about here is creating this collaboration web where everybody's coming in. So the answer is inherently no. We don't. There's user pricing there's pricing is done based on the volumes of projects that we're going to be managing, and then you can have as many different users that are getting in as appropriate. And as Alan kind of highlighted, you obviously will get this, create the appropriate security levels and role levels so they're getting access to just the appropriate piece. But no, we want everybody to be getting into the platform in your process using it. And by the way, there's no limitations to storage either. So unlimited storage, unlimited users.
Perfect. And how does the Asite platform compare to Procore?
Well, that's a rather pointed question. Listen, obviously Procore's been around for a long time, and they've done a real nice job, and they do a lot of the same things. We think that kind of some of the areas that we stand out in are kind of a configurability situation. So I mean, Alan didn't really have a chance to highlight the ability to customize, for example, the forms, but we have a really powerful, as we mentioned, powerful forms tool that allows you to customize or create brand new. That in a lot of other cases, whether it's Procore or somebody else, they may push you out to another third-party product like GoForms, also a nice tool, but it's just adding another product that has to be implemented, installed, and purchased into the mix. So, we're just providing that out of the box. But I'd also say that, our workflow capabilities, and again, we've just kind of scratched the surface, really get into the visual workflow, but our visual workflow tools are highly, highly powerful. So the configurability of what we provide and bring to the table, we think really kind of helps to set us apart.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And so what is the cost of the integration between Asite and Acumatica?
Okay, that's another really good question, because I do know that other products are charging for their integration with the Acumatica application. In some ways, sometimes as much as I've heard, even $10,000 a year that other products are charging for that on top of the subscription to the pricing. But we provide just inherently no charge. So there's no charge. Everything Alan just showed you, to be clear, the integration is no charge. There's the charge for the application. But no charge for the integration. And then just as an FYI too, to kind of close it out, we have found that from our pricing, that we're typically coming in at about 50% of competitive applications. Kind of somebody asked the Procore question before, about 50% of that cost. So we think we got it's a great product, a great solution, and we've tried to make sure that we've priced it competitively as well, for our clients. So.
Yeah, it absolutely seems that way. One more question. Is there an additional charge if users of the system are not part of the company?
Yep. No, great question. And the answer is no, there's not, right? So again, we don't charge per user. So whether it's internal to the company, your project managers, your superintendents, your back office team members, or it's the external team members from architects, engineers, subs, or your client, the answer is no. Inherently, you have the ability to provide access to whomever you want and set up the security and the role privileges so that they are getting access to just the pieces that are appropriate.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely love hearing that. Well, I think that's about all of the questions that we have today. So thank you all so much for joining us. And we hope that, you got a lot of value out of this webinar. And if you're interested in Asite, please reach out to myself, your assigned client success manager, and of course, Dan.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.